Let's talk about then the summer, because obviously me and Ben have been away, so we actually haven't had too many chances to talk about our summer business, especially on a panel show. And we've had one game obviously since the windows closed. That was the Newcastle game. So I think it's a good opportunity now to just review the window in terms of how happy we are with the business we've done. Obviously, we were promised a big summer for a lot of it. You know, the likes of Eze, Neto, big names were promised. We did get Solanke through the door for 60 odd million. We have signed the likes of Archie Gray for 40 million, so he's quite expensive signing. Odebear's coming for 25. Werner's been re-signed on loan. Ange was put to him in a press conference. He was asked, does he feel like he's been backed? And he said, yes. He said, I have been backed. This is what I've wanted. Young players who I can kind of shape and mold, and this team can grow together in the long term. You know, the likes of Bergvall coming as well. They've supplemented the squad. You know, Emerson, Højbjerg, Solomon. They've some of the names who have gone out the door. But, you know, a lot of fans are complaining, is Solanke the only upgrade really in our first team? How much have we improved the first team from last season? A lot of people, you know, have been complaining about could we have invested more? So I'll go to you first, Gav. Would you, if I asked you the question, has Ange been backed in the window? What would your answer be?
I would counter it with a question, just so we set an understanding of, do you trust Ange, right? Do you think Ange is an honest man?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say so.
No, one sec. Let me jump in there. And one of the reasons that I like Ange over Conte, Jose, and some of the other managers we've had is that he will protect his players and protect the club so that we don't have crazy quotes. I know we've had some crazy quotes from him, but like we don't have crazy quotes that rivals can use against us and football pundits and all that sort of stuff.
And he doesn't put pressure on the board as well publicly, it seems.
Yeah, and I don't. I'm not one of these people that is like, oh, he has to put pressure on the board and all this sort of stuff, because maybe that was the best we could do. So I don't think Ange is honest, like as in, I don't think a lot of these were his first targets. But anyway, carry on, Gav. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, so what I mean is that, you know, where does accountability lie if a manager is telling when he's answering questions in a presser, he's telling the fans. So when everyone's going, Werner was a dreadful acquisition again, just on loan, like, if you're going, that's Levy, if people are trying to use these signings to push on the club, he's sitting there going that they're all his. And if he's saying that, you have to believe him, or you're basically going, look, he just knows what he's dealt. He came into the club and they told him, this is all you're going to, we're not going to give you a 70 million player. Like, don't come in here think you're going to get world-class players. We believe in youth. We try to bring people through, and then we try to sell them off for bigger money. He's brought in really good young players. But for the life of me, I don't understand re-signing Werner, because it caused loads of other problems of what we could do in the window. He's went for, obviously, I can somewhat understand Solanke at 60, 65 mil, over Eze, because Eze is coming off a wing. Now we have other players on the wing. Is Eze going to ever start off Son? Is Eze going to ever start over Maddison? So there was already two marquee players in that spot. I don't think you were going to ever get a marquee player in that spot. So he went for one in centre forward when we need that. So they're all logical decisions except for Werner. But the profiles of an Archie Gray is, I don't think we understand what we've got with a player like that. And we're not really seeing him in his real position. But that guy, I don't know if you watched the Leeds Chelsea game last season, he sat down players. His turn sat them on their ass. That was in a big game. You know, he dominated that game. He was incredible around the box. His little movements, he dominated that game. Like, that was huge. And I see that in him. Obviously, he's coming in. He's got to play his part for a while. He's got to ride the bench. He's not going to get that many opportunities in the Prem this season, unless for an injury or whatever. But I think that is such a clever buy. And for the price, I think that is amazing. I think that's a 70 million, 80 million player soon, you know? So I think it's been good business, a lot of it. I just wanted different areas to be strengthened. The question of, people saying like, yeah, but did it strengthen the first team? Not really. But also, there is a lot of marquee players in that first team. Might have been on a downturn in form, but look at Kulusevski now. You try to tell me you're going to keep Kulusevski out of the team. So obviously, he doesn't want to cloud it with players who are then going to be pressured to play them all the time because they're never going to come here. Eze is not coming to Spurs if he knows he's battling Sonny or Madison or Kulusevski. He's not going to come. Why would I come and ride the bench? So I actually think he has been backed. I really think he's been backed. It's measuring then the expectation of the fans and in what we think we are as a big club. You know, we think we're going to get every big player. It's like, we're not. We can't compete with certain clubs. You know, like we're not on the upper echelon of European elite, but we've got good signings and it really should be good enough to build on. He also said, remember, if he had 100 million, he wouldn't buy 100 million player. He would go for it.
You said he'd rather buy 2 for 50. He said, yeah.
Yeah, but essentially he did it. He did exactly that. So I see him being quite honest about the fact that he did choose and he signed off on. You know, so he has to live with the fact of one bad decision in the window. But you know, aside from how things are going, I would say that I actually thought that was a decent window. You know, for where we're at in the second year, mostly to get all of the look at the squad we've trimmed out. You can pull most players in that squad on at any time in any game, and it's good, right? It's not you're not going to lose too much. You maybe not getting like the extra thing to win a game. We could have done with an extra Madison, but we're not going to get that yet.
Josh, what would you say, you know, well, first of all, your thoughts of the window and in terms of fans maybe arguing, you know, only Solanke is the only signing that's improved the first 11 and maybe that's, you know, not good enough and we need more than that. What were your thoughts on that kind of opinion?
I agree overall, to be honest, because Solanke is the only signing that upgrades the first 11 at the end of the day. When you're focusing in on the style of play, the attack was such an important upgradable part of the pitch, and we signed Werner and Odegaard. Odegaard, by the way, I've got high hopes for, really love him, but don't think he's ready to have that instant impact that we all want. And when we're relying so much on our attack, Solanke goes and gets injured. It's back to square one of last season with chances fall into players that just aren't, you know, they're not clinical. They're not in the top 3 in the Prem in their position or anything like that. Like it's not. So for me, although, you know, overall I'm positive on Ange and the project and stuff like that, I don't think improving the first team, it was a good window. It's a really weird window because there aren't many players there's only one player, I think, Werner, that I wouldn't have wanted to sign. Every other player I would have wanted to sign. Yeah. But it also isn't a good enough window if you're looking to compete, which is why I'm even more patient with Ange, to be honest. Because
you don't think Bergvall upgrades the first team?
No, I don't. Well, he might.
We're talking about first 11, Gav. We're talking.
Yeah,
I'm
first 11. Yeah, I think
I would not play Bergvall over Basuma.
Not in there. Not there.
Pardon? Yeah, I know. I wouldn't play him. Yeah, but he could. Bergvall can play all over the midfield, can't he? He plays like he played in a double pivot in the preseason games. Anyway, I might start him over Sarr in some games, but the thing is, for me, Kulu is first choice there for me. Like Kulu, Madison, Kulu, and Basuma are our first choices for me right now. So yeah, he doesn't upgrade that, but he should be coming on in games a bit earlier, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that he could be our other Madison. You know, you were talking about, we could have done with another Madison. He could if he's allowed the chance, but overall. Not good. You know, I was saying all summer, I want a top winger. That's what I want. Top right winger. Talking all the names that we went over in the group chat over and over again, all the names we were linked to, the Neto, Bakayoko. And we end up with someone who is clearly not ready. And then we've gone and signed Yamin Hyuk, I think his name is. Sorry.
Yeah.
So he's got to play at some point. He's coming in January, apparently. So he's probably, if we cancelled Werner's loan, he's probably taking Werner's spot. Another player that isn't ready to contribute at the top level yet. I don't think. I'm going to assume. Maybe one of these two players, Odegaard or him, have a massive step up, kind of like Saka, Martinelli, young Raheem Sterling. So, but that's a gamble. We haven't improved that attack apart from Solanke. And let's be honest here, Solanke hasn't proved anything yet. He's been injured and missed a few sitters in the first game. So yeah, I wouldn't say that we've done enough for me.
But talking about in terms of what's been improved in the summer, you could argue only Solanke improves the first team, but in terms of the business we've done with incomings and outgoings, would you not say the squad is in a much better position overall in terms of, if you look at the second 11 now, instead of players like Emerson and Højbjerg coming in, who we know don't really fit what Ange is trying to do, you do have players like Bergvall, Archie Gray coming into the team now, and that is and that was a big problem last season when we had to make changes and we had to, when players were injured, we had players coming in who just weren't really up to what Ange was trying to make them do. And now, arguably, with these signings and the squad that we have now, are we not in a much better position to make changes than we were last season?
Yeah, I think so. I think that overall, that's probably why I like the window, even though it didn't improve the first team. I think the squad is much, much better. Just like Gav said, I wouldn't have a problem with any of these players coming in. Gray, Bergvall, Odegaard, all of these players I want to see get good minutes this season. I'd say defensively, though, we haven't really done what we needed to. That's including the goalkeeper as well. I feel like if Vicario gets injured this season, we're effed. If Romero, we got Dragusin, I suppose. If Van der Ven gets injured, we're effed. If Udogie gets injured, we're effed. It's like, do you know what I mean? We really don't have the depth defensively. It's a shame about the Spence not being allowed in the Europa League, because I think he could have solved a lot of problems for us. And part of my optimism was Spence, like coming in and looking good in pre-season. So now that's out the window for Europe. We look shaky at the back, but everywhere else, I'm happy.
Just quickly on that Spence one, in terms of why he's been left out, do we think it's just Ange felt like his hands were tied in terms of he had to include Forster, or do we reckon there's anything more to it as to why he's been left out? Is there any thoughts on that?
I've seen some people say Leo Black or Dorrington, apparently, could be in the offing, because Leo Black, obviously you don't have to, I don't think you have to register either of them.
No, those two you don't, yeah.
Yeah, so, and both of them, obviously Dorrington not so much this season, like at the end of last season. He was injured for most of it, wasn't he? Last season. But, before that, he was really well thought of, should have been made part of the first team. And then Leo Black has been tearing it up for the past year. He's definitely got to be a left back option soon. So maybe them two. But yeah, I think that's just being kind to the club and Ange. I think that's one of his mistakes again. He should have let Spence be in.
Do you reckon he just felt he had to have that experience of Forster in case Vicario got injured, even though he's given Austin a 5-year deal in the summer and we've got 4 keepers in the squad? Did you just felt like he couldn't risk not having Forster in? Is that the thinking?
I think it's clear like, oh, he's my mate. Forster's the oldest member of the squad, I think. Probably gets along with Ange the most. Everyone says that he's a presence in the dressing room. It's clear, like, oh, Spence, who I'm not even sure on. I didn't like him last season, and at the start of pre-season, I wasn't sure he was even going to be involved. Am I really going to, mess up having my mate in the squad than him? That's what I feel like it is.
I actually think the versatility of Archie Gray will come in very handy. Obviously, he can play fullback. He actually mentioned, obviously, he did play centre back a couple of times in pre-season, and he mentioned him as an option as well when he was asked about leaving Spence out. And I think Archie Gray is one of these players where we needed one of these players if you look at a lot of the top teams, especially in defence, they have at least one player who's very versatile and can play across the back line. Someone like an Ake or an Akanji. Obviously, Gray's not that level, but players who are versatile can fill in different positions to a good level. And I think Gray's might be that player for us, who can just fill in a lot of different positions and actually be quite competent in a lot of them. And I think that's a lot of the thinking comes into his versatility. So I'm really excited about what he can offer this season in the league and Europa League. What are the thoughts then? You mentioned, Josh, you don't agree totally with people saying a monster six in our team is a complete necessity. Obviously, that was, I think, at the back end of last season, that was a big priority for a lot of people, getting that number 6 in to replace or be competition for Basuma. Obviously, Bentancur is now back fit as well. He's played there a couple of times now. So in that regard, do you feel like we're short in that position, or do you feel like, with Bentancur, Basuma, and maybe Gray even now playing there, we should be covered for the season in that position?
I think we're definitely not short in that position. I don't think you could have signed one without selling Bentancur or Basuma, which I think next summer we'll be ready to let go of one of them. Whoever does the least, whoever does the worst this season, I think.
And I mean, finding a player better than both those two as well.
Yeah. Yes, but like, for the way we play, like, I've got a massive agenda. Like I was saying the whole time, I remember when Ben was saying in the group chat that, Onana's rubbish and he's not good enough and all that. Onana is who we should have signed. He's perfect for us. He is another space-eating monster like Van der Ven, who can do those. So it's not just Van der Ven on his own. When Van der Ven's not there, you've got Onana who can make those recovery runs. He's like in the top 10 fastest players in the league or whatever. And that, if there was a chance to sign one of those, like Onana, fair enough, then yeah, that's the kind of 6 I would have wanted. But like the 6 market, like, yeah. I don't think we needed to. I don't think it's what Ange was prioritizing. And I think that, like, it's something that we can address as we go into the next stage, as we solidify ourselves as a top 4 team, if we do. If we ever become a title challenger or something, then we upgrade to the creme de la creme, a 6, because there's only 3 to 4 players that could do the single pivot 6 anyway. Mm-hmm. So for now, we might as well get by with Basuma, Bentancur, and make it a double pivot sometimes. Because I think Bentancur and Basuma, on top of their game, swap in, like one being the 8, one being the 6, one being the 8, and when we're on the back foot, like playing as a 2, I think that could be really good if they're both at the top of their game.
I think he had to give them another season, right? Because like Basuma had great form last season. Bentancur was unlucky, but he did look incredible when he came back in that first little spell. So when you've got 2 potentially phenomenal players, like, why go and make it harder for them to come back and get good again and bring another player in? Obviously we look at it like, well, we want a great big player in there, but the potential of them is that player. So when you've got it, why go business-wise? It doesn't make any sense. Go and spend, and then that person could be a complete wild card anyway, So I think backing both those players was the right decision.
Yeah, and I think that, as you say, I think it's really difficult in this market to find a player who's better than Basuma and Bentancur. I think people, yes, Basuma maybe dropped off the boil a bit last season and wasn't as good as he was in the first 10 games, but we saw at Brighton and we saw last season how good of a player he can be. Bentancur, before his injury, was one of the most consistent, I thought, centre mids in the league at that point before he got that ACL against Leicester. And I thought, there are signs for Uruguay in the Copa and for Spurs to begin the season. He might be getting back to his best soon, hopefully. So is it really beyond the realms of possibility that these guys could be the answer here? Is it completely like that crazy to think that Basuma and Bentancur could do the job?
Look at how we're dominating the ball, right?
Yeah.
That's a big part of because of them. When you see Bentancur come in. Now, obviously, inside your half, the way we play, it's always going to be the hardest thing. Like, you're such a vocal player. You're the easiest person centrally to press. You can make a player make a mistake. But the way we dominate, what you were saying, is that is the big improvement. 69% of the game, they do it so well. Like they're so comfortable on the ball. They move the ball so quick. They like through the lines, one touch pass in, got out, goal. Like they do it so well. It's just we're not viewing those things right now as the big benefits. But when we start winning games and you start seeing, well, how are we winning games? Because the build-up play going through these players is really good. And they need that. Bentancur also, he needs that like positivity, like to see something come off. You know, Bentancur can score goals as well, and so can Bissouma. So, yeah, I think it was. I think you had to. It's been this annoying thing from last season. Unlucky for Bentancur, but we've seen what he's like when he's really on his pump, and then we know that Bissouma can be that as well. So it's like back them. If you're looking at short term, you're going, we should have made something for right now. But if you're looking at long term, it's like the positives are too high. If it, you know, I would say 69% possession in these 3 games is already the win, you know, for that decision.
Yeah, what like gets to me about this conversation? I hear everyone saying we need a 6, we need a monster 6, we need 6, we need 6. What, you know, the goals that we've conceded or the way that we've played, like who's coming in and doing a better job than Bissouma right now, like that we could have got. You know, I see the comment there talking about Cardoso. He's young. He looks like a good player to be linked with. I haven't watched him much, to be honest with you. So like maybe, but there was no one there. So I'm happy to ride out with what we've got. And like Gav says, like we've got to see who the better one is out of them two, and then maybe
definitely no one cheap. There was no one cheap there. No deal. You know, other than Archie Gray, there was no magic deal there. You're going to go.
I think Bissouma and Bentancur are very good players to rely on. It's like people are acting like we're still relying on Højbjerg or something, but we're not.
Exactly.
We've got 2 very good players there who could potentially do the role. Yes, people would argue, is there any evidence that Bissouma can do it consistently? Is there evidence yet that Bentancur is back to his best or could do the 6? I mean, I understand that. But if we look at it positively, you definitely Bissouma at his best can definitely do it if we can get him playing that role consistently. And he was pretty consistent when he was at Brighton. So if we can get him to that consistency level at Spurs, he could do the job. And Bentancur, if we can get him back to his best, and you know, it's been over a year now since his ACL. That's around the time that players start fully getting back to their best off that kind of injury. It does take him a while.
He won't be feeling it anymore. Like he would have felt it every single game, and he would have had the nerves every single game to turn. Now he won't be. So now you'll see like him move on. You know,
I think there's slight, you know, evidence that he's might be getting back to his best as well. So I, for one, am not like that. Look, obviously, in a perfect world, if there was a Rodri Mark II available, yeah, I'd go for him. But how often are those kind of players available? They're a dime a dozen, and we do have 2 very good players here. Like if we're saying, we're never going to be successful because we've got Bissouma and Bentancur in centre mid, so we can never be successful. Like I think that's a bit lazy. Like there are 2 very good players there, and they could be in part of teams who can compete, in my opinion.
Ange said that as well. He said like there was targets, but if we weren't going to get the target, and like we're not going to like, you know,
panic,
what I mean? Spend if we can't get it. There was defenders that we ended up hearing that there was a defender. Feel that, you know, there was players that we were looking at. They just no point panic buying. I think the squad is in a good enough shape that you don't have to panic buy, right? Like you're being realistic. You don't, you know.
I agree. In terms of what I thought this summer, just quickly before we go on to the next topic, is I think we did do some really good business. I'm really excited about that we got a young squad who's hopefully going to be here for the long term, a team who could grow together. The one transfer I am frustrated with is Timo Werner. Obviously, I've made my feelings clear about that. The fact it was our first signing as well, right at the beginning of the window, where we didn't even allow the window to see what kind of opportunities we would have gotten. For example, if we would have just not signed Werner and signed Chiesa instead for a cheap fee, for like 10 million, I think I'd be a lot more positive. I'm not really sure why we've re-signed him, as much as I do think he can be an effective player in the system that we do play. I think we saw too many flaws in his game to suggest that it was worth another year, in my opinion. I thought we should have moved on from him. We probably could have spent a bit more money in that position. It was a very important position as well. And we've also, because we signed him, not only has it screwed us from a foreign player quota kind of point of view, where we've been stuck in that position, but as well, We then ended up signing Odegaard, who seems to be more natural on the left-hand side. So why have we signed another player who's more natural on the left, like Werner's more natural left, like Jan Min-hyuk is more natural on the left as well, who's another player coming in. So we've got him, Son, and Odegaard, who are all more natural on the left-hand side, and left ourselves basically just Johnson, who's most natural on the right-hand side. And now Decky, we don't even see him as a right winger anymore. So that's our front line is a bit unbalanced on that kind of point of view.
Johnson's right-footed as well. Like
Johnson's right. So we have no one really on the left-hand side who can cut in or anything like that.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen from Odegaard, who's had a few little cameos now on the right-hand side, he doesn't seem to be that comfortable there at the moment. Yes, it's one game against Newcastle. I'm willing to give it a bit more time, but as soon as he moved over to the left in that Newcastle game, he came alive. He was a lot. He was a lot more exciting. And also, Timo Werner seems similar to Johnson. He seems to be only really effective in certain kinds of games where he has a bit more space to play in, where we can isolate him one-on-one. As soon as we play him in these low block games, he seems to be completely ineffective, and he seems to not know what to do, and that's a bit of an issue. So, if we would have gotten a right winger who's more dribbly or whatever, can play more of those low blocks, or is left-footed, I think that would have really balanced out the front line a lot more, and I would have been a lot more happy with that business. But I do look at our front line, and we did sign a dribbling winger, which we did need in Odegaard, so I'm very happy with that. I'm really excited about the likes of Gray and Bergvall, what they're going to bring to the squad. And I think Gray, in terms of his versatility, I think it's going to be a massive benefit to us. I'm really happy with him. And I think people discount the likes of Bentancur come back to full fitness. I think Kulusevski is going to be like a new player this season in his change of position as well. Obviously, now Solanke's in. It means Richarlison's a sub-striker, not a starter. And that's actually can be very valuable, in my opinion, when you've got someone like Richarlison coming off the bench in games, or even if he starts and you've got Solanke coming off the bench or whatever, that could be really valuable, in my opinion, having that kind of competition, having two threats in the number 9 there. So I think the squad has really improved, and I think the business is really good. It is slightly underwhelming. If you would have told me before the window this would have been our business, I would have said probably it's slightly underwhelming in terms of the big names we were promised. But I do think that the overall squad has massively improved. And I think we've got a much more Ange focused, like technical squad now. The technical ability of the squad has really risen, in my opinion. And I'm really excited about what these youngsters are going to bring in the future. And also, you know, if keeping Timo Werner means developing someone like Mikey Moore and giving him a pathway to the first team for next season as well, and if he, you know, shows he could be a star or could be ready, that could also be, you know, he's alluded to his thinking in the long term in terms of why he didn't bring another centre back in. As you say, you know, we've got Vuskovic and Phillips potentially coming in next season, and he didn't want to block their pathway by signing another defender. So he's clearly got that in his forefront. You know, I don't want to. I've got this a really talented group of young players, and I've got that. I don't want to be blocking their pathways. I want them to see there's a pathway to the first team here, and I think that's really valuable as in terms of bringing young talent to the team, and also having a team that's together, that grows together, and that's committed to the club as well. I think that could really pay off in the future. So, yeah, I do think in terms of has he been backed. Yeah, I do think he's been backed in a sense. Yes, we probably could have gone for one more big signing, probably. I would say one more £50 million signing. But I do think in general, in terms of have we got a squad much more in the mould of Ange than we did last season, I think we do. And I think he has been backed in that sense.